Good afternoon or good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm Keith Luce with the National Committee on North Korea. NCNK, for those of you who may be new to our programs or may be unfamiliar, NCNK is an organization promoting principled engagement between the United States and North Korea. We have about 100 members. We have a variety of projects and programs that we engage in for that purpose. Today's program is an example of providing someone who is extremely knowledgeable in terms of North Korea, Northeast Asia, our featured speaker, as well as our discussant, both of whom I'll get to in a moment, who is also quite knowledgeable. I wanted to indicate that today's program will be recorded. It will be posted later on NCNK's YouTube channel. I'd ask that you please not take screenshots, but if you have a question for either of our participants today, please use the Zoom Q&A function. And at the end of the program, according to our time, I will provide those questions to our guests as much as possible. So today, I would just remind you that you have received the full bios of President Elbegdorj and Jenny Town. Just as a reminder, Mr. Elbegdorj, formerly President of Mongolia, has a distinguished career in so many other ways. He is a member of the Elders. He is a visiting fellow at Stanford. But I first heard about him decades ago, back in the 90s, when he was a freedom fighter, a journalist, someone very much involved and a leader in Mongolia's democracy revolution. He has quite a past. Jenny Town, many of you know. Jenny is senior fellow at the Stimson Center. She is director of the center's Korea program, and she's in charge of 38 North. So today, we're first going to turn to President Elbegdorj for his presentation, and then to Jenny afterward. So, Mr. President, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy to be with this National Committee on North Korea. And when we talk about North Korea, of course, issue related with the Northeast Asian security. And in 2013, my administration, we launched the initiative UB Dialogue on Northeast Asia Security, the Ulaanbaatar Dialogue. And actually, that started like an international conference in 2014. And all those countries in Northeast Asia, my country and China, South Korea, North Korea, Japan, Russia, was participated, and also US, Canada, Germany, Dutch, Sweden, Switzerland, and European Union, United Nations, and other relevant organizations also were there. And just last June, we had in Ulaanbaatar our 9th conference, and there was also some additional countries, Estonia, Finland, France, and Great Britain, and others. I saw that there were around 200 guests. That was really good. And why we initiated that UB dialogue, I think one thing is Mongolia has a really good relations with all those governments. And also we know that there are through Channel 1 official government positions and bilateral relations usually go. And also we have that expert level Channel 2, but between them, we call it 1.5 channel. And through that, we discuss usually security issues, all those related energy infrastructure, green development, and humanity and other issues. And that was our aim, and I'm really happy that the initiative is still continuing. when we talk about our relations with those countries, yeah, most importantly with North Korea, I would like to tell you one story. During Korean War, North Korean government asked all those embassies and ambassadors to leave because of the concern related with their security issues. And all they left, but there only one ambassador stayed in Pyongyang, and that was Mongolia's ambassador. During that time, he was really not only ambassador, actually he was one of the famous statesmen in 20th century in Mongolian statehood in politics. And that leader Kim Il-sung asked why you are not leaving. That's very dangerous. You have to go. And he said, how can I leave you, comrade Kim Il-sung, during this tough time? And I'm going to be with you. And he stayed until to the end of the Korean War. That actually established, put some great road, opened the road. And also Mongolia was the second country to recognize North Korea. And since then we have diplomatic relations and we have embassies there. And when it comes to North Korea, also in my mind come one issue, that North Korean refugees. And I know I personally involved in that project since 2003 and up to the 2008, almost for 5 years. There were many North Korean refugees. They came to Mongolia, and through Mongolia, they find way to other country, of course, mostly to South Korea. And number of those people, I may say, thousands. And also last year, I met some of those representatives of those refugee people, and they were really thankful for our effort. And with the relations of Beijing Olympic Game, which took place in 2008, actually that stopped. Also, with the North Korea and with the regional countries, we worked very closely, importantly with Japan. And Japan has one important issue they call abductee issue. And through Mongolia was blessed to manage that issue, and we managed several meetings with the Japanese government officials and North Koreans, even those refugee families, and some refugees even came, not abductees came to Mongolia to see their relatives, and that was quite a good thing. In 2013, after my election for second term as president of Mongolia, first country to visit was actually North Korea. And before visiting North Korea, they asked as a courtesy, what would you like to see, Mr. President? Where would you like to go? And we said, I would like to visit three places. One is, of course, the nuclear weapon site, and I would like to go that place. And second, I would like to go to the labor campus, and I heard there are a lot of human rights abuse, and those labor camps exist or not, and I would like to go there. And third one, of course, we said I would like to visit one North Korean family just to share tea and to talk about their life and work and their views. But after a while, we received the answer, and all those three things were actually they refused. We cannot do that. And again, they asked, do you have any other wish? And again, we said something, and also including my visit. And I asked to go to Kim Il-sung University and to meet professors and students there to read lecture on our two countries' relations. And they actually agreed that. And I went to read, I prepared my lecture, and before that, they reminded Mr. President, don't mention three words, three things. Don't mention market economy, word relate market economy and democracy, human rights. Of course, I didn't mention that, and I read my lecture, and my lecture's topic was no dictatorship lasts forever. And if you're interested, you can go today on YouTube. That lecture is still there in English. Other thing, when I met the North Korean people, and also during my lecture, I tried to present one thing that there are many other ways, to manage society and people's life around government. And Mongolia was a communist country, and we had a similar political system, and we actually made transition from the totalitarian regime to the democracy. And I talked about those things. And other thing also we can share that Mongolia since 1990 we announced our initiative related nuclear weapon free zone. If you are nuclear weapon free, you can have also other means to secure your country's independence, sovereignty, and security. And there are many other ways, and we can cooperate and we can share with you. Also, I was really keen that I think it's better to liberalize in terms of the open something in your country, related with trade or entrepreneurship or movement of people, and you need to ease those things. If you ease those things, people little bit free trade or something, producing something on the private initiative or moving and going to other countries and coming back. I think those are people are benefit from that, and that was also my thing when I was there. But now still I'm quite keen with the North Korean topic, and I'm following it. And when there is the relations and visits or those talks, I always say one thing: don't forget North Korean people. Their sufferings. If you go there, always address those issues, those human rights abuses and sufferings of North Korean people. I really believe that one day that regime may change, but North Korean people will appreciate, we didn't forget them, and they are not alone there. And that's one message. And I know there are three really concerning issues from other issues, nuclear and human rights abuses. Of course, firstly related that humanitarian issue related with the disease and tuberculosis, for example. And there are really widespread that issue. And just recently we had at our university at Stanford one topic related with North Korea, and we talked about things, what's happening in North Korea, and there were some experts came in, and there was two issues actually attracted my attention, and one is issue related with the irradiation. Since 2006, North Korea actually had 6 times all those nuclear tests, and last one was in 2017, and people say that that was kind of the hydrogen bomb. Because of those nuclear tests, I think those irradiation contaminated soil and water, everything there, and that actually caused really real danger to the North Korean people's health. And there are some number, if out of the 10 North Korean refugees, there are 8 of them have some kind of disease or sickness related with the radiation. And the second one, which also attracted my attention, that methamphetamine, meth, that thing is really widespread in North Korea, and that government and military and also those forces and they usually use that benefit from that meetings, and that's quite concerning for me. And I think North Korean issue still is relevant, and we need to pay much more attention. I think in relation with the war in Ukraine, we see that how it will develop. And after that, I think that a flashpoint in the world is still the Korean Peninsula issue will be one of the flashpoints in our region, and also Taiwan. Maybe possible war between US, China, all those things, and nuclear tensions. If we see that Northeast Asian countries somehow involved, or maybe would be part of this issue, and because of that, there needs to be more dialogue, more interactions. And we know that President Putin today in Pyongyang, and also NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg in Washington, D.C., and we see all those things are developing. And now I'm looking forward, to more discussion with the audience and with other people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. One question before we turn to Jenny. I've always been fascinated by Mongolia's ability to maintain a strong relationship with the DPRK, concurrently with a strong relationship with South Korea, with the ROK. How can this be? I mean, you've just laid out how Mongolia has welcomed many North Korean refugees, and yet the North Koreans maintain active contact with your country. South Korea maintains active contact. Please tell us how this balance has been possible.
I think one thing is, of course, how we conduct our relations with other countries, and including North Korea and South Korea. Usually, one thing we rely on our history and bilateral relations, history of our bilateral relations. And as I mentioned, one of the first countries to recognize North Korea was Mongolia, and we had good relations with North Korea in many sections of society. And even we changed our countries, even we transitioned to democracy, we kept that relations. When it comes to our foreign policy, there is no foreign policy. The foreign policies we say that we have one window foreign policy. We have one foreign policy. There are no party things. There are only state foreign policy, and that actually helps maintain those good relations. And South Korea is one of the countries we really rely on in our region, and we are really appreciative, because since 1990, many Mongolians, still there are cases, still more than 50,000 Mongols work and live in South Korea. And since 1990, they support our economy and their families, and we are really thankful for South Koreans. And also we are thankful that North Korea is still maintaining that good relations with us, and they are sending those delegations to conference, UB dialogue, and other meetings, and we would like to maintain that.
All right, very good. Jenny, please proceed.
Thanks, Keith, and thanks to NCNK for including me in this discussion. President Elbadors, thanks so much for being here and offering us your thoughts. This is probably, I think, the third or fourth time I've met you. I don't know if you remember all of the times, but it's always a real pleasure and a real honor to hear you talk about this issue, and for all, really thank you for all the work that you've done to create a forum in Mongolia to be able to have these regional discussions. My first trip actually to Mongolia was in 2014, and it was at a time when, under your presidency, when you were promoting the third neighbor policy. And as one of those tenants, were offered Mongolia as to convene for US North Korea Track 2 dialogues. And so we had gone there taken a small delegation there to meet with the North Korean officials to talk about US DPRK relations. And you were gracious enough to host us in the president's residential compound in the guest house, which was the perfect venue for us to have a very quiet conversation, free from, the kind of harassment we get from reporters in other countries and other prying eyes. And so it was really a testament to the convening power and the value of being in Mongolia, where it is remote, but that remoteness, there's real value in that remoteness and being able to facilitate that kind of conversations and dialogues. And I know that, again, in that year, as you mentioned, Japan and North Korea were also having talks about the abduction issue under Prime Minister Koizumi. So, that was also the year that the UB dialogue started, and I was there for the first one, and I was there for several of them over the next several years. And because there was a really interesting dynamic there, where it was a place where we could have a regional security discussion that included the North Koreans and wasn't just about North Korea. And that was really special. And, one moment that stands out in my mind was one year on the panel, we were talking about hard security issues. And the South Korean presenter on the panel started talking about market economy and how, this can lead to empower the people to exert greater power over society. And the North Korean presenter on the panel got very upset, of course, and stood up and started yelling at the panel of, you have to stop now, or I'm leaving. And at that time, a Mongolian colonel was actually the moderator of the panel. He was sitting next to the North Korean presenter, and he sort of held his arm and got him to calm down. And you could, one, see the respect between them, but also just the ability to have that really uncomfortable, difficult discussion in that kind of forum was really amazing. And it's one of the reasons why people ask me, why do I keep going back to Mongolia? That is one of the reasons why I continue to go back, because there's the opportunity for that kind of discussion to happen. It's one of the places where, there is a North Korean embassy, and that the North Korean, officials there can act like real diplomats. And it is a place where you can, there is the opportunity to really have a greater regional focus that includes all the parties that need to be part of that region. And I think it's unfortunate that Mongolia has been excluded for so long from regional discussions. And I think it was very, very smart of the Third Neighbor policy to really try to bring people to Mongolia to experience that and to see the value that Mongolia brings. I was just at the last UB dialogue, and I do know that it has changed a lot over the years. So that kind of intimate discussion that we were able to have before is not how it's formatted now. And I do hope that the organizers will consider going back to that original format, because that's really where that advantage was, and that really special relationship was, and special opportunity was. But I think it is also, I think the last the UB dialogue, when I was there, on some level there was a real, I think, complaint that the scope of the conference has really expanded. It used to be really focused on Northeast Asian security issues, and it wasn't just about North Korea. I remember the very first UB dialogue, there was actually, most of the discussion was disputes between China and Japan. and the rest of us kind of sitting back and watching this happen, including the North Korean presenter. I think he found it a little amusing. But I think, the scope has expanded now to include a broader scope of issues. And on some level, like, I think it's lost focus, but on another level, it makes a lot of sense, because what we've seen, of course, in Ukraine, in the war in Ukraine, is that, Northeast Asia and Eurasian security are intimately tied. And especially now these days, and especially, because, both Koreas are involved directly in military affairs in that conflict. But I do hope there's a way to really bring back that more intimate environment in that forum, in order to be able to really maximize the utility of that venue. So, I really appreciate some of the insights that you've given us about your time, both going to North Korea and working on this issue. And I think one of the things we hear from Mongolian scholars a lot is we hear a lot of talk about the third neighbor policy, and a lot of talk about the idea that you have good relations with all the countries in the neighborhood and beyond. But I would love to hear more about what you see, because you have good relations with all the countries in the region. What do you see that we get wrong on North Korea, especially? Where is, the real miscommunication and misperception in that relationship that prevents us from being able to move forward when there's such dire need to really clamp down on the security environment in the region?
Thank you for sharing, Jenny, all those stories, and it's really nice to hear that you were there participating, from the start in all those dialogues. And really, I think that was our initial thinking, why these people are coming to Mongolia. And there are a lot of places, countries, can they meet with each other. But Mongolia, that you mentioned, that kind of the intimate environment, even those bilateral meetings, they should benefit from that. They can get the kind of insight they are looking for, and to have that dialogue in other places, in other forums, they cannot do that. They cannot happen. That should happen in Ulaanbaatar, not only sitting in the round table and also making some speeches and go away, but to keep that. I think I will also to pay attention to that, and if there is any possibility to express my ideas or communicate with our officials in Mongolia, the related officials, I may mention that it's better to keep that intimate environment, when they come to Mongolia. And the other thing also, in that regard, Mongolia has no vested interest. Really great venue, and because of that meeting, and from that meeting, people can benefit, and that was really our idea. And thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, so I do wonder, like I said, if you have any insights as to where you see real miscommunication and misunderstanding, especially between the two Koreas and the US and North Korea, having had the advantage of sort of being in the middle of all of that without a real vested interest in the outcome, but really having access and perspective in this.
When it comes relations with North Korea, during, for example, I really expressed my dissatisfaction, for example, the U.S. President Donald Trump, and when he agreed to meet Kim Jong-un. Before that, if they conducted that diplomatic dialogue between them, and if he put all those issues on table. And if really he was serious about that meeting and that dialogue, that would change a lot. But he just agreed without any condition. Oh, I go to see that guy. And from that meeting, for example, Kim Jong-un benefited more than any other person. And also when they meet, they never address, almost not address those sufferings of the North Korean people, all those abuse. And I think no, from my experience, I know that when you go there, if you talk about nuclear weapons, all those things, North Koreans are quite happy. When you address those sufferings of North Korean people, all those human rights abuse, and they are not uncomfortable. And I think if you would like to deal with any other country or with those regimes, you have to address those issues which they don't want to talk, which they don't address inside of their countries. You have to bring that into the table. And second, of course, we are so used to those sanctions or those one-sided position, if we say that North Korea is a really bad regime and threatening to regional security and stopping everything. I usually advocate that to keep engagement, people-to-people engagement is really important. I think you have to go there. You have to talk. And even during my time, and there was the at the height of the sanctions, they asked, you may close that warm relations, subtle relations with North Korea. And I said, even all those windows are closed, we need to keep one window open. And that might be our window, Mongolia, North Korean relations. Through that, other parties can benefit from that. I think government of Japan actually worked very closely with us during the late Abe administration. That was one example. We can do good things. And that's maybe that's my answer to your question.
Great, thank you. In your remarks, you mentioned that when you were going to North Korea, that there were 3 things that you asked for originally: to visit the nuclear weapons sites, and to visit a labor camp, and to visit a North Korean family.
Yeah.
If you had it to do over again, would you choose the same 3 things to start with, and why?
Yes, if they ask, maybe yeah. Now, of course, times changed and also circumstances changed, and also my position is changed. I'm now a private person. If I have opportunity to go, of course, I will be more open with the engagement. And also, one thing I not exclude, for example, all those people suffering, I will address, and also those situations in labor camps, not only to politicize it, that environment, that tuberculosis and other issues, they are facing. And if there is any window, I can help or communicate with the irrelevant organizations, to help them. And if I have chance, I may go just people's everyday issue I would like to address and to contribute to that, and that's my intention.
Thank you. I'm always
Actually, one thing I would like to add that when I yeah, mentioned that 3 things, and after that, when I read that lecture at the Kim Il Sung University, that actually cost my meeting with the Kim Jong Un. There was unexpected cancellation. But I had a meeting with Kim Yon Nam, chairman of the People's Assembly, and he actually regarded the head of state. Kim Jong-un is the great leader, and we had a good discussion with all those with other officials, and even we had He visited the sports venue and other places. Yeah.
Do you feel that decision was worth it? Was worth missing a meeting with Kim Jong-un?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm always really, I find it really interesting that Mongolia is a nuclear weapons-free zone. In and of itself, between Russia and China, and in a very nuclear armed neighborhood. This is, of course, one of the same dilemmas that North Korea faces if it were to disarm. And I wonder if you can offer any insights as to, one, why Mongolia decided to establish its own nuclear weapons-free zone amid all of the nuclear states around it, and what lessons or advice would you give to the North Koreans about the role of nuclear weapons in their own security?
Yeah, related with the nuclear weapon, of course, I think striving to have nuclear weapon, acquire that weapon may be one thing, but once you have that, keeping that, it causes a lot of troubles related with the security and troubles related with the relations with other countries. Without them, I think I may say there are maybe you may have a lot of windows open and doors. But once you get that, that's a very different game. And because of that, if North Korea stopped that nuclear program, they maybe benefited more. Not only, I think, of course, I don't like that they benefiting only that regime, but those ordinary people to people relations and economic and trade relations and other relations, including South Korea and other advanced countries, regional powers. I think they would have benefited a lot, and they would those North Korean people would benefit from it most. When it comes to our relations with our neighbors and the regional powers, one thing usually I I I I usually say that Mongolian people's mind is quite open, and also we have quite big heart. One time in 13th century, 14th century, Mongolia was a really big power, and we have that historical things in our blood, and we never think that my country or Mongolia is a small country. Can we go to those powers and to have this kind of engagement? We usually see ourselves as equals with our regional leaders and with the leaders of our neighboring countries. We usually work with them equals, and also other thing is important that our way of life is actually chosen by our people, that opening our country and coming transitioning to democracy, and even there was a very remote country. Now Mongolia is during for 70 years. Mongolia was one of the remote country. Now one of the most connected country in the region, and actually people are benefiting. And I usually see that we have to have different policy, even different political system than in our neighboring countries. That's really important thing, and to keep that. And actually, we have really different philosophy. Some countries think that if their central power is strong, their country gonna be strong or prosperous, more stability. But in Mongolia, we have different philosophy. If our people are strong, if our people have more rights, Mongolia will be more prosperous. And because of that, we are still committed to our democracy. In this month, in the late of June, I think after now in 10 days, Mongolia will have one of the most important elections in our history. In the last 8 years, in 2 terms, actually, former communists were in power. Still they are in power. Still they want to keep their grip in power. But I think in the last 8 years, actually, our democratic institutions suffered a lot. And we need to reinstate our democratic aspiration again in Mongolia. And I hope also regional powers, all those countries who engage with Mongolia, they will pay more attention to the democratic achievements of Mongolia. Since 1990, really Mongolia was the only country between Russia and China democracy, now for 34 years.
To pull on that thread a little bit, I think it is impressive that Mongolia has been able to maintain a democracy given its neighborhood and the strong influence that comes from both China and Russia. What do you think is the most important element to the transition period that made it successful? And also then, lessons that that North Korea may consider as well in thinking about their future.
There are a number of issues. Of course, our democratic transition, all those democratic achievements were actually people initiated and people's owned. And because of that, our democracy is grassrooted. And people are really wonder how you guys survive there as a democracy, as an open society. But because of our people, best hope is our people. And now 34 years, there are almost one generation, almost half of our population live now without communism or socialism or those totalitarian regime, and they cannot live without freedom there. And that's really important. And best hope is our people. And because of that, Mongolian democracy is quite resilient. When it comes to other countries, when I was there, there were people coming from Myanmar, for example, when they had after military government, Aung San Suu Kyi government, and all those advisors, media people, and public relations people came to Mongolia and military even, and how to transition, from military government to civil government. And those people came from Eastern countries, even from Afghanistan and others. They usually say that your experience is quite grassrooted, and your experience is close to their experiences, and they learned a lot. They benefited when they come to Mongolia, when they see that our struggle for democracy and struggle to try to keep that establishment, and when they see that really struggle between those big powers, I think they benefit a lot. And we had it during that time kind of motto, and we said we have nothing to teach to others, but we have something to share with others. And still, I think that motion and that notion is still quite alive in Mongolia. And when I visited North Korea, I told them, when you keep your people in an iron fist, when you all make all those decisions on behalf of your people, your leader or your government, you have to give people little bit air, little bit freedom. Maybe starting liberalizing some relations related with the trade, with selling something. Giving some initiative. Establishing some kind of service things, restaurants or small shops or something like that. You have to give that, and also the freedom of movement. Actually, people benefit a lot. When we started our transition, one thing was to issue to every Mongol can go out of Mongolia and visit other countries and come back. And when they come back with knowledge and also bring all those necessary things to back to their countries. And from that, actually, people benefited, not the government. Maybe that ruling party suffered, but people benefited from that. And because of that, people are today appreciative. And I always try to share those lessons. Also, those North Korean leaders asked me, what happened to those political leaders who were there, before your democratic transition, revolution there? And I said, nothing happened with them. We didn't persecute them. And actually, why Mongolian democracy was so successful, we gave them room. And we said, we're going to have multi-party democracy. And new party and your old party equal to run. Of course, in the initial elections, maybe starting, you will keep your power. Let's compete. In Mongolia, we like a horse race. In a horse race, there is no one horse. There are several horses. But strongest of fastest of them usually win. It means that if there are a lot of candidates or many parties, people can choose that. People will feel that I'm the owner. I choose how to live in my country. From that, usually people's initiative. In a freedom, I think one thing is really great. When people feel more freedom, they become more creative. And from that, you get a lot of businesses and a lot of good things usually happen in people's life. And I think when North Korean people come there and they see those changes and transitions, and even if the officials, few people, if they come, they get some knowledge, and that's also good. And that's the one thing we can contribute to that. Mongolia is maybe, yeah, in terms of the population, a small country, but when you see that the flame of freedom, in a darkness, you can see that flame can be seen from very far. In a dark sky, that northern star is quite visible. Mongolia can be that star. You can transition from whatever kind of the regime. You can transition to democracy or just to make people enjoy their rights and dignity in their life. And that's really important. And we will need to support also other countries and other nations to enjoy that. And because of that, I usually say that don't forget those long-suffering North Korean people. You have to address that.
Well, that seems like a great place to throw it back to you, Keith.
Jenny, thank you. Excellent questions. And again, your background is tremendous. Mr. President, we have just a few questions we would like to pull in here. The first from Mark Tokala, who served as Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Ulaanbaatar. Mark asks, are there lessons Mongolia can offer North Korea on how to use mineral wealth for the nation's benefit without being exploited by foreign companies?
Mongolia is one of the 10 richest countries related with the mineral wealth. And this mineral wealth thing, and we all know that this is, of course, great thing. And but that actually brings, if you manage that in a wrong way, that brings a lot of curse. That became the curse. And because of that, when I usually say that still, I try to do that. When you are freedom fighter, when you are not in office, you may say really many great things. But when you are in office, you have to try to deliver that. And delivering that means that you have to serve in the interest of the people. For example, when I took my oath, I entered to my office, and that was big office, and I said, let's make from this office kind of the citizen hall in our government house. And we refurbished that to citizen hall. And within 1 year, we got in Mongolia around 600 citizen halls. If you have a democracy, people should have a place to come together to discuss things. And if you make any decision, you have to present that draft to your people, and they should express their ideas. That was behind of that. I think you have to deliver. When it comes to our mineral wealth, of course, that the corruption issue. When I entered to my office in 2009, our corruption index was 120. But after working and initiating a lot of law related with the judiciary reform and all those things, within 5 years, actually, that dropped to the 72. Means that every year Mongolian corruption index dropped by 2 digits. But now again, it climbed to the 121. When it comes to freedom, when it comes to democracy, I think you have to address those bad things which may bring, inflicting wounds to democracy or freedom. You have to address. I usually say that democracy and freedom never grow, never grow. It's like a children. It's like a baby. You have to take care of them. You have to change the diapers every morning, like our moms do, and you have to change that. And if you don't do that, and people will lose their interest in their democracy, in their freedom, and it may bring your country into the challenging situation. When it comes to corruption in Mongolia, fighting corruption in Mongolia, not only good governance issue, I usually say that it's our existence issue. Because without democracy, without freedom, we cannot be independent country. We cannot provide our policies independently. And essence is our democracy, essence is our people's right. In order to keep that, you have to keep your government or state clean up that bad things. And that's everyday struggle.
Thank you. So James Hammond asked the question, what engagement, science, cultural, and so on, is happening between Mongolia and the DPRK? What examples have proven to be more durable over the years? And I should point out that Mr. Hammond himself has been involved in engagement with the DPRK, along with Rich Stone, other Americans and Brits, on matters related to Mount Pettu, the volcano. So how would you answer Mr. Hammond's question about what is the type of science and cultural engagement occurring now between Mongolia and the DPRK that you know of?
Yeah, when it comes to our two countries' relations, one thing actually we inherited from socialist time. During socialist time, and still there are the case in Mongolian government policy, there is a government commission between two countries, North Korea, Mongolian government commission, usually headed by one of the members of the cabinet. And in that, we usually put all those package issues with any other countries, and we use that we still keep that with the former socialist countries. With other open democracies, we keep other policy engagements, other policy structures, and that's one thing we are keeping. And the other thing, of course, we are trying to be respectful and honest to our relations. We say that, democracy and all those refugee-related issues, or maybe that abductee issues, we are honest. We would like to address those issues. And we are open for those issues and for those challenges to contribute to that. When we meet with the North Korean officials, and we usually address that openly. When you address those things honestly and openly, as your policy, as your country's policy, administration's policy, usually they answer to that positively. And through that, we try to keep our relations intact. And the other thing, of course, the traditional foreign policy is one window relations. There is no party or no personality heavy involved, and maybe that's one success.
Very good. Helena Kalinda, formerly the Asia Program Officer at the Henry Luce Foundation, she referenced your mentioning earlier about the Japanese abductee issue And she was wondering if you could clarify a little more. If I recall, there were some discussions between Japan and the DPRK while you were in office on the abduction issue. Can you provide any more insight on that topic?
From my experience, I really always think that when it comes to North Korean issue, I always say that Japan should take very active part in this issue. When it comes, for example, two Korean issues, North Korea and South Korean issue, maybe those two countries, they try to exclude other countries, maybe include United States. I usually advocate that Japan should take part in that relations. It's really important. I think because Japan has their principled stand on their positions, and they have real issues with the Koreans and with the both Koreans. And I think Japan should be there. If Japan cannot come there, if Japan needs some hand to cooperate with, Mongolia can be open. Mongolia can be one of the helping hands, one of the hands go together with them. And I think Prime Minister Abe actually used that very, very wisely during his time. And Prime Minister Abe actually visited Mongolia 3 times and always addressed that issue, and also Mongolia's security issue and development issue. He was really keen to keep Mongolia's involvement. And in relation with North Korea and the regional issues, I think still Japan is a very important partner, very important country to get involved to solve that problem or that challenges. Yeah.
All right. So we have two final questions we'll squeeze in. The first from Stephen Norper, whom I believe you know. Stephen lived in Mongolia for a while. He has written extensively on the country. He's been involved in projects in Mongolia. Steve asks or comments, your personal trajectory is moving and historic, from a journalist who helped lead a bloodless revolution to prime minister and president, and now to Stanford and to the elders, where you serve alongside former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Might you address your journey and your return to writing and idea sharing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the questions. And after leaving my office, I actually engaged with the international non-governmental organizations. And now, as you mentioned, I am one of the elders. Elders is a quite exclusive club. There are only 12 elders, and that was initiated by the great Nelson Mandela and others. And I am one of the elders, and I am the youngest elder, actually. Also, I'm the member of the Club de Madrid, which is the democratically elected prime ministers and former presidents club. That's a more wider, 120 of them. Through that, I still keep all my network, or still try to keep on track all those my contributions with others. And also I'm the one of the commissioners commissioning against death penalty. You know, when I was in Mongolia, became the president, I abolished that death penalty in Mongolia. I usually say that when I entered to my room, my country, my state was killing. When I left my workplace, my state was no longer killing. You know, respecting that human life, sanctity of human life and dignity. Through that, I go many countries, including African and other countries, also campaigning for the right to life. And also I'm a member of the Global Leadership Fund and also Global Sustainability Fund. And through that, I actively participate in dialogues and in other issues. And now I'm at Stanford, and also I work with other places, and that's really nice. And being one of the sons of the herdsmen, and thanks to the People's Choice in Mongolia, I had a privilege to serve as a prime minister and president. I always grateful for that. And when people have more freedom, I think also, even the ordinary herdsman's son can enjoy, can reach unimaginable things, and that the connections in terms of all those people and meeting and contributing to that. And I think person and even one person can do many good things if all those people are free, if all those people are owners their destiny. All those people will bring really wonderful things. And I'm really, really grateful for my people's choice for freedom. And my lifetime mission is to make my country free and to keep my people free. And still I'm trying to contribute to that. Yeah.
Well, indeed you are. You've been on a remarkable journey, and it's far from over. Our final question is from Ross Tokala, Program Manager at the East-West Center. He's based at the East-West Center's office in Washington. Ross writes, President Elbegdorj, thank you very much. Could you speak more to what North Korean officials ask of Mongolia in their bilateral meetings, and how North Koreans want Mongolia to see regional and global dynamics?
Yes, yeah. When I meet North Korean officials, I always talk about our experience. I always try to share our experiences and with them. And I think, yeah, I know North Korean situation and political establishment and their country's way of life, but other countries and other people, all those people who are interested in North Korean topic or having some relations with that country, I think they should have really, really open mind and open heart, and not succumb with the personal or political ideology or something. When you have that open heart, I think you can see broader picture. When you see broader picture, in that picture you will see all those people's struggle and sufferings. And when we talk about all those things, I think North Korean, we need to know North Koreans that there are people are caring about you, and you are not alone there. And if there is some change come to North Korea, and people may enjoy that, and the more open North Korea is good for the Korean people, and for the well-being of everyone there. And thank you for these wonderful questions, and thank you, Kate, inviting me to this great talk. And I would like to be engaged with other people, including this North Korean topic. I'm quite active on social media, on X. If you guys not following me, please now follow me. And I post also in English my posts in Mongolian. And I hope this meeting you say they recorded. Maybe after that, if you give me a link, I may put it in my social media and for broader audience. And through that, yeah, I am really happy to get involved again with this topic, and more with the more discussions. Thank you very much.
Well, on behalf of NCNK's membership, I just want to say thank you. You've been very gracious with your time, not only today and in preparing for this event, but in the past when you've attended an NCNK meeting in DC and other ways. So I'm so fortunate to have met you many years ago when I worked for Senator Lugar, and grateful that you will remain in contact. And thank you for the effort you put into the preparation for this event. And in that regard, I would also like to thank Seth Joyner, Marissa McPherson, Taj Adams, my colleagues, And special thanks to Mike Mitchell, who is a mutual friend of both of us, for his assistance. Jenny, thanks to you again as well. We are grateful for you being with us today. With that, this meeting is concluded. And again, in the not too foreseeable future, this program will be posted on YouTube. Have a good evening or morning or afternoon. Take care.
Yeah.